Shu? This guy is an ugly, pathetic orphan who got abandoned by his mom and bullied by literally everyone. His life is a non-stop highlight reel of humiliation and disappointment. But then, plot twist, he unlocks a cheat system that turns fear into power. And he uses it to level up, get strong, and get revenge on everyone who ever looked down on him. The story starts 18 years ago. Shu's mother is walking cautiously through dark, rainy streets until she spots an orphanage and hides there. When the orphanage director finds her on the porch, she's confused, but the woman shoves baby Shu into her hands along with a spiritual pendant, then pieces out like she's going to buy cigarettes. Classic. Years pass. Shu grows up as the orphanage's favorite punching bag. Kids make fun of him constantly. Then one day, another orphan named Shiyu notices what's happening and reports it, saving him. From that point on, Shu and Shiyu become inseparable. When Shu becomes an adult, he officially adopts Shiyu as his little sister. Life finally becomes normal for them. Until one day, while they're walking through a festival, Shu overhears a couple talking about people awakening strange superpowers. He remembers hearing something about this on the news. Before he can think too much about it, Shiyu spots a fire mage throwing flames with his bare hands and drags him over to watch the show. When they get there, Shu gets hit in the face with fire. But right before it burns him, time slows down, and he suddenly finds himself in an alternate dimension. Thanks to his mother's spiritual pendant, he snaps out of it quickly, completely confused. He keeps watching the mage, looking for hidden tricks. When he doesn't find any, he starts suspecting the guy actually has superpowers. To confirm his suspicions, he and Ziyu sneak backstage after the show to uncover the mage's secrets. But when they get there, they find him surrounded by 4 mysterious men in black. Freaked out, they hide. Then the leader of the group, Fei, suddenly shoots the mage in the neck with a tranquilizer dart. While they're moving the body, Shiyu makes a noise that alerts the men, and Shu's heart drops. But to avoid getting shot, he nervously tells Fei they got lost looking for the bathroom. Fei knows he's lying, but he doesn't want more trouble. So he lets them go and continues kidnapping the mage like it's just another Tuesday. On the way home, Shu realizes he was right about the mage having superpowers and spends the whole night wondering how any of this is possible. Later, when Shu realizes they're out of food, he goes to the corner store to buy some. But on the way, he gets distracted, walks into traffic, gets hit by a truck, and finds himself lying in a pool of blood. At the point of death, a system screen suddenly appears. His mother's spiritual pendant shatters, releasing all its spiritual energy into his body and reviving him. Shu gets up like a ghost of Tsushima and demands the truck driver pay him or face the wrath of all the souls he's run over in the past. The driver is terrified and runs back to his truck. As he escapes, Shu notices game-style status pop-ups appearing over him and some terrified onlookers. He ignores them and buys his food. When he gets home, the same system screen appears again, this time showing all the status points he's earned. Curious, he explores the system's functions and discovers that status points are used as currency to buy upgrades, and they can only be earned by annoying or scaring people. Excited, he spends everything on the system's fortune wheel and wins a star fruit and a magical lullaby poem. After eating the fruit, he recites the poem and gets transported to an alternate dimension that looks like space. But when he calls out to Shiyu, she answers like she's in the next room. So he decides to annoy her instead, which gives him more points. Later, Shu watches the news with Shiyu about a fire at a nearby shopping mall. Suddenly, he senses a wave of negative energy around the house. Curious, he climbs onto the roof to make sure they're not in danger. But when he spots Fei and his goons jumping from rooftop to rooftop like ninjas, he hides quickly to avoid being seen. Before he can fully hide, Fei and his men hear the noise he makes and investigate until they find him. By then, Shu has found a box of radishes on the roof. So when Fei asks why he's relaxing on the roof in the middle of the night, Shu lies again, saying he lives there and came up to grab the radishes. They let him go since he doesn't seem like a threat. Shu immediately goes back inside. He and Jiu hear someone fall into their snowy yard and rush out to see that it's the fire mage from the festival. Shu suspects the guy, being a fire mage, might have escaped the men in black and caused the mall fire. But since he looks dead, Shu tells Shiyu to call emergency services to take the body to the morgue. Hearing this, the mage, who's actually playing dead, cringes. Shu earns some negative points for trolling him and realizes the idiot is faking. Knowing this, he keeps trolling the guy to build up more social credit and negative aura points. At some point, the mage wakes up, tries to get Shu to lower his guard, and makes several attempts to burn him from the inside out with his fire powers. But Shu's awakened powers block the idiot's fire from igniting inside him. The mage realizes he's being stupid, apologizes, gives Shu more negative emotion points, and leaves embarrassed. The duo goes back inside, and Shiyu catches a bad cold while teasing her dumb big brother for awakening useless powers. At first, her cold doesn't seem serious, so Shu ignores her rambling to get more negative emotion points and goes back to his room to keep exploring his cheat system. Not long after, he finds the game shop, spends some points on a celestial fruit, and eats it. In seconds, his consciousness reappears in his celestial map. Shu watches his spiritual energy merge with the floating orbs there. After the fusion, sharp chest pain sends his soul back to his physical body. Suspecting he just awakened the lowest rank super strength power, he tries lifting the bed with one hand to test it. After succeeding, he realizes he needs more negative emotion points to level up faster. So he goes back to the living room, sits next to Shiyu, and becomes a Twitter keyboard warrior for a few minutes, trolling anything that moves. While he's doing this, Shiyu's cold gets worse, so she teases him angrily, calling him broke and unable to afford her school extracurriculars. But Shu hits back with a life lesson speech that shuts her up, and he keeps annoying random people online. The next morning, Shu sets up a makeshift stand on the sidewalk to sell boiled eggs and sauce to passersby, making some cash before school. It doesn't take long for his class president and personal hater Lu to show up with his goons and talk trash just to get a reaction. Shu ignores him at first, but when he keeps running his mouth, Shu convinces him to buy all 47 remaining eggs. Now Lu isn't exactly generous, so to troll Shu further, he pulls out his Golden Express credit card and tells Shu to scan it, knowing he doesn't have a reader. Luckily, before Shu can be embarrassed, the school's coolest girl, Sai, shows up with the ultimate friend save and pays for the idiot's order. When their eyes meet, Shu instantly senses latent spiritual power inside her, almost like she's hiding her superpowers. But before he can thank her, she disappears. Hours later in class, Shu learns about the 6 rank classifications for awakened people from an online video and quickly realizes he's still at the lowest rank, F rank. While he keeps trying to farm more negative emotion points from his classmates, another student suddenly appears and says one of their delinquent classmates, T, who just awakened, is trying to throw their homeroom teacher off the roof. Hearing this, Shu disappears to investigate and follows 2 sketchy-looking guys to the roof where T is. When he gets there, he sees a crowd of students gathered around T and racks his brain for a way to farm negative emotion points from them. While T keeps rambling about being above the law because of his age, Shu steps forward and starts listing fake laws that would send people like him to the grave. Luckily, T has the intelligence of a brick, so he believes Shu's nonsense and releases the teacher. The other students, realizing Shu was full of it, stare at him in shock that his nonsense actually worked, involuntarily giving him another 1,000 negative emotion points. After calming things down, Shu returns to class and finds 2 government doctors there, ready to draw their blood and test for metahuman abilities. To avoid having his blood taken, Shu tries to sneak out, but a 3rd doctor blocks his path and holds him until they take his sample. After school, Shu goes home and finds out Shiyu tried to wash his clothes with cold water, making her fever worse. Feeling sorry for her, he gives her some of the star fruit he bought from the system. Almost instantly, her fever disappears. After recovering, Shiyu goes back to teasing him like always. Shu ignores her and asks if she'd want to awaken if she had the chance. When she says yes, he promises to find a way to help her do it, then scolds her for abandoning her homework to earn more negative emotion points. The next day, Shu's homeroom teacher shows up with Faye to make a special announcement. The moment Shu spots Faye with his teacher, he's shocked, but stays quiet to hear what he has to say. After formalities, the teacher talks about a special class called Yuan class that the government is organizing with Faye as the instructor to educate newly awakened students about their superpowers. He calls out the names of the newly awakened students in class. When he and the entire class discover that Shu has also awakened, everyone stares at him in total shock. Shortly after, Faye leaves, and the teacher introduces a handsome transferred awakened student named Jiang to the class. Jiang sits next to Shu, becoming his deskmate. As class continues, Shu notices nervousness on the guy's face and trolls him relentlessly to earn negative emotion points. That night, Shu returns to school for his first Yuan class with his fellow awakened students, including Jiang. As class starts, Fei appears and explains he'll teach them about cultivation. But the moment he's about to explain the concept, he spots Shu sitting in the back and immediately asks him to define what a sodium-potassium alloy is. As someone whose brain still runs on Windows Vista, Shu answers so stupidly that even Beetlejuice would feel second-hand embarrassment. The whole class bursts out laughing. To avoid more distractions, Fei quiets the students and explains that the alloy, also known as liquid metal, is what doctors use to test human blood for signs of awakening. When mixed with human blood, liquid metal turns dark with a specific shade. The darker the shade, the higher the awakened rank. Fei then narrates how awakened people even came to exist. According to history, it all started a few years ago when scientists observed a large number of positrons in the environment. Unfortunately, before they could control the spread, many humans had already absorbed some of these positrons and developed unique cultivation techniques that gave them superpowers. With that, Fei ends the class, and Shu goes home, where he eats some star fruits to suppress his spiritual power and stay off the radar. But after eating a few dozen, he runs out. To find a substitute, he spins the fortune wheel and wins a bowl of stinky tofu that he shares with Jiu. After eating the tofu, Jiu asks Shu to buy her pancakes and fruit on his fortune wheel. Over the next few minutes, Shu spins the wheel nearly 50 times. Unfortunately, all he gets is stinky tofu. On his last spin, he suddenly gets another magical lullaby poem. But the moment he's about to read it, Jiu's body absorbs everything, and her soul gets transported into his inner celestial map. Scared she did something wrong, Jiu apologizes. When Shu encourages her to calm down, she keeps exploring his celestial map until she awakens her superpowers. The next morning, Shu goes to his stand to sell all the stinky tofu he got the night before. But on the way, he sees his sick neighbor, Old Man Li, swinging a sword in the yard like an Alpha Generation kid. When Li sees him, he offers to teach swordsmanship. Shu ignores him and walks away. He returns to his life over the next few days, selling stinky tofu and eggs while earning negative emotion points and leveling up. One night, Shu consumes another celestial fruit and returns to his inner celestial map. There, the first magical poem he recited earlier suddenly plays, and over the next few seconds, he fuses the spiritual power of a Chinese character in his palm with his soul nebula, fancy name for the soul orb or center of his celestial map, and creates his first spiritual weapon, the Corpse Hound Dagger. The next night during Yuan class, Shu spots Fei using a spiritual stone to train another awakened student and asks Jiang what it's for. Jiang explains it's for training. Fei ends the demonstration, gives instructions on how to train with the stones at home, and abruptly ends the class. When Shu gets home, he tries the exercise his teacher assigned using his Corpse Hound. But when his celestial map becomes violent, he suddenly realizes Fei's teachings can't help him, so he stops training and calls it a night. When he gets to school the next morning, Shu tells Jiang about his terrible experience training with the spiritual stone the night before and asks how his training went. Unfortunately, while Jiang is narrating everything he learned, someone annoys him, so he bails and runs off to cry. Since he's less busy, Shu visits a half-empty classroom and finds Lu participating in arm wrestling matches. To humiliate him, Lu challenges Shu to a match. Shu destroys both of his arms and embarrasses him. After the competition, Shu hangs out in the cafeteria, trolling Lu and his goons the whole time for being losers. When Jiang asks why he's picking on Lu and his crew so much, Shu lies, saying it's because Lu and his goons helped him awaken his weak powers. Luckily, Jiang believes him and advises reporting his progress to Fei to get more spiritual stones. Instead, Shu asks Jiang about Fei's background. Jiang says Fei is from an organization called the Celestial Network, where most of them come from. Shu starts suspecting something sinister is happening behind the scenes. Later that night, Shu feels a sudden wave of negative energy around the house. He stops what he's doing and peeks out the window to assess the situation. He spots the Celestial Network leader, Ting, and some of his bodyguards heading toward Li's entrance, and wonders what business they have with the old man. At the entrance, Ting introduces himself and asks to be let inside. After Li invites him in, they exchange pleasantries. Li serves tea, and Ting immediately brings up a war forming in the nation. Given Li's strength, Ting encourages him to join the Celestial Network to help stop the war. But the law strictly prohibits high-rank Golden Foundation awakened like Li from joining forces with the opposite side of the Celestial Network. Li refuses. At this point, Ting gets desperate, even bribing the old man with more ginseng tea. But when Li still refuses to join him, Ting gives up and leaves. Shortly after, Shu suspects Li might actually be connected to the Celestial Network, which houses some of the strongest cultivators and awakened people known. So the next morning, he approaches the man and agrees to train with him if he can watch Shiyu while he's at school. Without hesitation, Li accepts his condition, and Shu makes sure to leave Shiyu with him before going to school. At school, Shu watches a recording of a bank robbery caused by 3 awakened people. While analyzing the footage, he gets more than a dozen negative emotion points added to his balance from Li and fears Shiyu is annoying the old man. After school, Shu gets a strange look from the quiet cat C at the school gates, but ignores her and rushes home, only to find Shiyu trolling the poor old man to his second heart attack. To his surprise, every time Li gets angry, he earns negative emotion points added to his balance, which is strange. But thinking about it, Shu figures it's because their celestial maps are similar. Now that Ziyu is back home, Shu releases her to preserve Li's sanity and encourages him to prepare for his first swordsmanship training. Shu makes all the appropriate preparations, but when Li starts trashing the founder of Taoism, who also belongs to the Celestial Network, Shu interrupts and encourages him to explain what he wants to teach. To demonstrate, Li takes a piece of paper, infuses it with his spiritual energy, creates a magic blade, and cuts through a wall an inch or two thick like butter. Afterward, he says some philosophical things about swords, then hands Shu a rusty sword and tells him to practice the strikes until he can cut the air. The moment Shu starts practicing, Li instantly recognizes the flaws in his terrible form and posture and starts taking notes. Over the next few hours, Shu infuses his spiritual energy into the sword and improves slightly. But when it gets dark, he takes a break, has tea with Li, and ends the night. After a brief discussion about hard work, Li asks Shu if he plans to use his swordsmanship skills to help people. Shu says probably not. Given his difficult upbringing in the orphanage, Shu tells the old man he grew up wanting only to live well and take care of Shiyu. The ambitious types can go save people. Hearing this, Li realizes he can't change Shu's conviction, so he agrees to disagree and ends their first training session. The next morning, Shu leaves Shiyu with Li. This time, Li's wife, Lin, buys a bag of chips for Shiyu and encourages her to eat them while she studies her books. Meanwhile, Shu arrives at Li's yard to discuss things with him. After Shiyu manages to annoy both of them, Shu gets a notification that she's near her sister. This shocks him. He thinks Shiyu might be one of the Celestial Network's higher-ups. To make sure he finds her, Shu leaves school immediately and runs as fast as he can to Li's yard. When he gets there, he tells Shiyu to run inside and grab something for him, then introduces himself to Shi. After formalities, Shi informs Li that the ruins of the old country are showing signs of reappearing and warns him to ensure his fellow Foundation members don't try to stop it. After this passive-aggressive warning, Shi tries to recruit Li to the Celestial Network like Ting did. When Li still refuses to join, he simply leaves. Facing everything he just witnessed, Shu asks Li about this Shi person. But when the old man describes the kind of power he holds in the Celestial Network, Shu panics. Seeing this, Li assures him he'll keep their lessons completely secret. He then drops 2 vials of liquid metal and insists Shu and his sister test their awakened levels again. Later that night, Shu and his sister put a drop of their blood into each vial. But when the reaction starts, Shu's solution emits a strange glow, exactly like his celestial map, while Zhiyu's solution takes on the shade of an A rank, awakened. Confused, Shu checks the color grading to figure out what rank he belongs to. When he finds nothing, he concludes his power must be too weak to even cause a reaction and decides to just dump the solution in the yard. While he's doing that, Li appears and asks what rank he is. Shu lies, saying he's still F rank, and Li returns home, visibly disappointed. Later, Shu breaks through his celestial map's Soul Nebula for the second time and finally unlocks a bright blue aura cloak that covers his entire body, offering absolute protection against any injury. Around the same time, Shiyu also breaks through the first layer of her Soul Nebula, awakening her necromancer abilities. She makes sure to show off her new powers to her brother when he wakes up, bringing a dead ant back to life as her zombie servant. Intrigued, Shu asks if she can summon more than 1 dead animal at a time. Zhiyu runs outside excitedly to try summoning more dead ants, only to realize she can still only summon 1. Knowing this, Shu suggests she try summoning another animal. Yu effortlessly summons a bird that had just died. He asks how long she can control her zombie animals. Yu tells him there's no time limit since they consume very little of her black hole energy. Then she suggests they try summoning dead humans in the cemetery. But after seeing how terrifying ghosts can be in horror movies, Yu tells her to try something else. Eventually, Yu takes his little sister to a pig farm and forces her to learn pig anatomy so she can summon one properly next time. Even though Yu is reluctant to learn to summon such a weird animal, she still manages to summon a dead pig when they get home. To test how real the pig is, Yu opens it to see black blood dripping out, then stabs it to its second death with his corpse hound, earning a bunch of negative emotion points from Ziyu's anger and rage. Later that night during dinner, Yu finds out from the news that the bank robbery suspects from earlier are fleeing toward the city and have already killed 3 people in their rampage. Not long after hearing the news, he and Yu start feeling a negative aura hovering over their neighborhood. To track its source, Yu activates his aura cloak and jumps across some rooftops with Yu until they find the 3 bank robbers on a bridge fighting Fei and some of his goons. While they watch the fight peacefully, the D-rank robber leader, H, makes one of his men fire several fireballs at Fei. But when Fei deflects them, he jumps over and grabs him, fighting like the Joker. At first, Fei defends against his punches, but since H is a power type awakened, he's easily overwhelmed and retreats to call for backup, without a second thought. Seeing this, another robber turns the road into an ice rink to stop him. But before they can catch him, Fei's colleagues arrive to give him cover. With both sides now on equal footing, Fei ignites a substance he'd hidden in the 2 lesser robbers' coats earlier and blows them both up. Then 2 of Fei's goons run into the smoke to finish off H and the others, having no idea it's a trap. The moment they enter the smoke, a second explosion happens, killing both. H and his men immediately retreat without looking back. While the police pursue them, Yu sends Yu home to keep her safe, and follows the cars until they reach the robbers' hideout, which happens to be an abandoned building. While the police infiltrate the building, the other 2 robbers suggest to their leader that they surrender to maybe stay alive. But since they already killed 2 of Fei's men, he tells them they can't take that risk. With time running out, H tells them about a safe zone in the mountains and promises to get them out safely at the right moment. After waiting a few more minutes, H knocks out his 2 goons, breaks out of his hiding spot, alerts the police team, and bolts toward the alleys. To stop him, Fei and his colleagues chase him down and stab him in the stomach with an awakened blood sword technique. But just as they're about to deliver the final blow, they spot Yu covered in his blue aura cloak, casually relaxing on a steel bar above them. They attack him instead. As the second round begins, Yu toys with Fei's subordinates like they were trained by nobody. Meanwhile, Fei, who couldn't recognize Yu because of his cloak, keeps fighting the injured leader. Despite his bloody wound, H puts up a good fight against Fei's men while making sure not to bleed out too much. Approaching the end of the ordeal, Yu takes his fight to a thin steel bar and easily knocks down the 2 women fighting him. But just as H is about to kill one of the men fighting him, Fei joins the battle and blows up the entire place without mercy. After the explosion, H charges at him, and Fei, thinking it's a weapon, accidentally sets him on fire. In seconds, a second explosion happens, but this time it knocks out Fei and the rest of his colleagues, leaving only Yu standing. Then the arrogant robber buffoon decides to fight Yu instead of just fleeing, but the moment he extends his fist to punch him, Yu powers up using his corpse hound and clashes fists with him in a brutal exchange. The resulting shockwave sends a devastating wave of force through H's body, breaking every bone inside and killing him instantly. To avoid exposing himself further, Yu runs home as fast as he can. There, he suggests he and Yu explore the alleys around the abandoned buildings for any new souls she can collect. Yu reluctantly agrees, and they set out. When they get there, Yu asks Yu to scan the entire area with her sparrow for any sign of the robbers. As soon as she reports no signs, he puts on his blue aura cloak, walks to the exact spot where the robbers died, observes it carefully, and sends a message for Yu to come out after confirming it's safe. Once she arrives, Yu scans the area, senses the 3 robbers' souls still lingering, and tells Yu. Hearing this, Yu tells her to absorb H's soul. When she does, he instructs her to summon it. Unfortunately, Yu can't because she's completely exhausted from all the running. But since she only needs a day to recover her strength, Yu decides to take her to a cheap late-night spot on the corner to eat and celebrate their big win. When they get there, Yu stuffs her face like a pig, without any manners. While she's doing that, Shu warns her to always keep her new necromancer powers secret and make sure she doesn't release the soul she captured earlier. When Shiyu still ignores him, Shu figures she might not be happy living with him, so he tells her he'll send her back to the orphanage soon. Shiyu immediately breaks down in tears. As she begs Shu to let her stay with him, Shu remembers all the painful memories he shared with her in the past. He not only decides to keep her as family, but also promises to buy them a real home soon. Happy to hear this, Shiyu holds Shu's hand, and as they finish their meal, the duo promises to always be there for each other no matter what. Later that night, Ting, Shi, and some other Celestial Network members hold a meeting to discuss the aftermath of the battle with the D-rank robber. During the meeting, Shi talks about the mysterious guy in the blue cloak who killed the robber Faye couldn't capture, and notes that the guy has stayed completely off their radar until now. At first, they figure the person was Lee. But after investigating the mysterious guy's movements from a video recording of the battle, they realize he might actually be stronger than Lee himself. With that said, Shi encourages everyone at the table to make an effort to remember if there are any legacies they might have left behind. But given how rare it is to find someone so skilled, Ting says the guy is definitely not from the Celestial Network. With that said, one of the high-ranking executives at the meeting, Yi, stands up, reminds Ting that the next ruin will open in Lu City, which happens to be where Shu lives, and requests permission to go investigate this mysterious guy. After warning him to operate in complete silence, Ting gives him permission and ends the meeting. Next, Yi asks Shi about the mysterious guy's power. Shi says he's absolutely certain the guy, despite being younger, will beat him badly. The next morning, Shu returns to his glorious, stinky tofu business. After selling his first batch in minutes, he gets a little sad because people have gotten used to the smell, and he hasn't been earning enough negative emotion points from them. To fix this, he sells the next 50 bowls of tofu and starts trolling the next customers, which, to his surprise, gets him way more negative emotion points than usual. Later that night, while Lee sneaks out of his own house for a secret mission, Ziyu finally manages to summon H's spirit as her zombie servant. Excited, she runs to Shu's room to show off her improvement. But the moment he opens the door, she scares him so badly, he jumps. Seeing the zombie, Shu locks his whole room and studies it in silence for a few more seconds, completely shocked. Then he asks Ziyu if she can control the ghost. She assures him she can do it easily. After their brief conversation, Ziyu reveals she also developed the ability to see H's last memories before he died. Judging by what she's seen so far, she tells Shu she knows they buried the money on top of the mountain in the southern suburbs. With that said, she suggests they dig up the money for personal use. But the straight-laced Shu tells her they can't do that. It would draw too much attention to themselves. Sad about the situation, Shiyu reminds him they could buy their dream house with that money. But when Shu promises to buy it the right way, she stops crying and goes to sleep more peacefully. Shortly after, Shu returns to his bed, checks a real estate brochure, and then searches the black market online for things he can sell to make quick money. The next day at school, Shu hangs out with Jiang and asks if he's heard any news about what the robbers from the previous day left behind. In response, Jiang drops some metaphysical jargon about mass awakening, calling it the rebirth of the spirit, somehow linking it to antimatter that affects both plants and animals. Total madness. Amid all that talk, Shu asks Jiang if any intellectual property sells easily on the black market. Jiang informs him that the spiritual stones being distributed in Yuan class are worth a considerable amount, like a lot. About an hour later, the school principal gathers all the students on the sports field to witness the inauguration ceremony for the new principal, the unpleasant Fat Yi. After making the students wait in the scorching heat for a full 30 minutes, Yi finally arrives with Faye in a police car, looking like a literal piece of dog poop. But when he spots the principal at the gate, he explains he was out hunting for the robbers' money with his friends and got caught by the police. Now out of trouble, Yi enters the school. But as he walks toward the podium, Shu instantly recognizes him as a high-ranking B-rank awakened from the Celestial Network without a doubt. At that exact moment, Yi also senses someone assessing his skills. So he stares into the crowd of students hoping to find this person. But Shu, being clever, hides his face. After searching a few more seconds and finding absolutely no one, Yi steps onto the podium, gives a half-baked introduction speech, and dismisses everyone unceremoniously. Later that night, Yi runs the special Yuan class with Faye. After introducing himself, he shows the students a video recording of the robbers and their battles against Faye and his men. Next, He talks about the mysterious runner who defeated H. He tells them about the guy's impressive swordsmanship skills and insists the students notify him or Faye if they notice anyone acting suspiciously and to keep their eyes open. With that said, Yi and Faye proceed to explain the new spiritual stone distribution system, as well as the long-awaited school trip they'll soon take to Beaming Mountain to explore the ruin that just appeared in the country. They end class shortly after. Moments later, as the other students head home, Shu pulls Jiang to a discreet corner near the school, presents 2 spiritual stones to him, and asks how much he could sell a single spiritual stone for on the black market. At first, Jiang asks where he found 2 random spiritual stones, since their supply is strictly controlled by the Celestial Network. But when Shu tells him not to worry about it, he says each stone could cost up to 100,000 yuan. Shocked, Shu begs Jiang to spread the word that he has 2 for sale at 120,000 each. But the moment Jiang calls one of his contacts, he finds a buyer willing to pay no less than 240,000 for both. He asks Shu for his bank account number. Surprised at how fast everything happened, Shu hands Jiang the 2 spiritual stones and tells him to handle the sale first so he can send his bank account number later. With that resolved, Shu says goodbye to Jiang and starts walking home with a smile on his face. Around the same time, little Shiyu continues to annoy Li. But while Li scolds her for being a walking headache, Lin literally appears with a bowl of steamed red potatoes and serves them to her with love. While she's munching on the potatoes, Lin spots Yi sneaking through her yard, calls him out, and demands to know what he's doing there. Initially, Yi lies that he was just trying to deliver some medicine. But when Lin confronts him about his nonsense, the fat man caves under zero pressure and tells her about the mysterious C-rank awakened he's currently investigating. It's true that Li doesn't care much about the mysterious guy. He's the Celestial Network's problem after all. But when Yi mentions he can use a sword, Li suddenly realizes what's really at stake. With a scowl, he tells Yi that C-rank isn't from his foundation, and after agreeing with him, he leaves. Later that night, while Li reflects on this mysterious swordsman, Shu returns home, hands Jiyu the new phone he just bought for her, and tells her he's going to buy the house they're currently renting directly from the owner the next day. In the first few seconds of hearing this news, Jiyu freezes, almost like she's in a dream. But when reality finally hits, she hugs Shu and cries uncontrollably. Afterward, Shu puts her to bed and spends the rest of the night exploring his celestial map. But while he accumulates XP to become a C-rank awakened, Siyu, on the other hand, has even more darkness infused into her system, which is pretty concerning. The next morning, Yi approaches Shu's stinky tofu stand out of nowhere and asks to buy some samples. However, when he recognizes Shiyu as a student from his Yuan class, he starts demanding Shu give him tofu for free in exchange for his protection. What a piece of work. At this point, Shu's stand neighbor confronts the guy and accuses him of extorting an orphan blatantly. But to avoid looking like the villain, Yi pays Shu in full and leaves with his bowl of tofu. Later that night, Shu buys their house as promised. But after his evening Yuan class, Yi calls and reminds him about the school trip to the ruin. With time running out, Shu messages Shiyu saying he'll be away for a few days and heads to the bus pickup point. On the way to the ruin, Shu's classmates get a little scared, thinking they're being led to their deaths. But when Shu asks Jiang what he thinks, Jiang assures him they're only there to protect the territory while the higher-ups explore the ruin themselves. Realizing he's right, Shu asks Jiang to explain what these ruins are. Jiang tells him they're strange caves left on Earth by an alien civilization after the great atmospheric shift that gave rise to awakened people. Wherever one appears, masters and cultivators from all over fight over the infamous Formation Eye, considered the most valuable item in a ruin, and sometimes massacre each other to get it. Since this is the only ruin that's appeared in their entire country, Shu scolds the veterans for keeping them completely in the dark. But Jiang says they might be doing it to keep them calm. Moments later, everyone arrives at the Beaming Mountain camp and lines up for a quick briefing from Faye before settling in. After telling them the real reason they're there, to learn hands-on, he warns them to never talk about the operation or training to anyone else under penalty of court-martial. After his speech, Faye dismisses them, and Shu and his classmates grab a bunch of food from the camp cook like they're starving. Moments later, while everyone enjoys dinner in a separate camp, a brute with main character syndrome appears and rudely imposes his presence. He steps on everyone's food and demands an extra bench to accommodate his 300 pounds. But the moment he gets a bench, Shu fixes his defective brain cells with a slap right across the face. This causes a huge commotion among the students. But when Fei appears and realizes Shu was responsible, he just carries the fat idiot away and lets dinner continue in peace without further trouble. Around midnight, Shu sneaks out of his meditation practice camp to get some fresh air. When he gets there, he finds Lu staring at Beiming Mountain. He completely ignores him and tests the air to see if he can cultivate negative emotion points without practicing meditation like the other students. The moment he discovers he can, Shu returns to camp and does his best, and then some, to frustrate Lu, his sworn enemy. This way, he can cultivate as many negative emotion points as possible without mercy. At first, Lu tries to ignore him to focus on training, but when Shu doesn't stop talking, he just gives up. The next morning, Shu buys 9 celestial fruits with the negative emotion points he earned from Lu and pulls out his phone to call Shiyu, only to realize there's no signal. Shiyu would freak out, but knowing she's a little more mature, he forgets the call and focuses on breakfast. Minutes later, while having coffee, Jiang asks Shu about bothering Lu the night before and why he's always picking on him. Shu says it's all because the arrogant idiot lost to him twice in arm wrestling. After coffee, Shu spends the entire day annoying Lu. So by nightfall, Lu runs to a cliff and sets up there, hoping to meditate in peace. Unfortunately, the moment he gets back to meditating, Shu appears out of nowhere and continues tormenting him until he gives up. The next morning, Shu transports his soul to his celestial map and uses the 9 celestial fruits he bought earlier to upgrade his blue aura cloak to the next level. After that, he returns to reality and walks back to camp to get in the coffee line. But Lu appears and starts provoking him about his rank again. Instead of reacting to the idiot's provocations, Shu suggests they settle their differences in another arm wrestling match. By now, a crowd has gathered around them, so to avoid the eternal shame that comes with defeat, Lu tells Shu to fight him instead. However, before they can even fight, Fei appears and authorizes the arm wrestling competition. In minutes, he sets up a tent for the competition and pits them against each other. Unfortunately, when the competition starts, Shu wins easily. At this point, Lu starts questioning his own reality. Impressed by his strength, Fei decides to compete with Shu. Shu beats him too. About an hour after arm wrestling, Shu and Jiang notice a strange fog approaching their camp from the mountains. At first, they think it's normal, but when the fog keeps getting dangerously close to camp, they realize it's the infamous portal that sucks and traps everyone inside the ruin until it's cleared. With time running out, Fei and the other officers make an emergency broadcast over the loudspeakers, ordering everyone off the mountain as fast as possible. But unfortunately, it's already too late. The fog swallows everyone, including Shu and Jiang, and sends them into the ruin. After a stomach-churning landing, Shu wakes up and finds himself in a desert inside the ruin. However, while exploring the place, a zombie skeleton attacks him with a battle axe. Shu does his best to dodge the skeleton's swings, but the moment he sees an opening, he grabs the skeleton's axe and smashes its head, killing it. While he keeps exploring the ruin, a bunch of other skeletons rise from the ground to avenge their fallen friend. But soon a group of other students approaches and advises him to stay as far away from the skeletons as possible. At that instant, one of the students gets attacked and killed by a skeleton. So to protect the others, Shu faces the entire skeleton army alone and kills them all while the others watch. After defeating every skeleton, Shu returns to the other students, gives instructions on how to avoid skeletons shortly, drops the axe, and leaves to continue exploring the ruin. Soon he finds another group of zombie skeletons, annihilates them, and runs to find a place to camp before nightfall. Given how strong these zombies can be at night, Shu knows he needs to find a spot with a wide view, like a mountaintop. So he runs toward the nearest mountain. On the way, he spots a red flare flying through the sky and knocks it down to observe. However, when he reaches where the flare landed, he finds a blonde Yuan-class student from another city named T standing nearby, holding a flare gun and staring at him with a confused look. While Shu wonders who this strange guy could be, it's revealed that Chung is actually a spy from another city sent to the ruins to steal the Formation Eye, and firing the flare gun was his way of meeting up with his spy colleagues in the area. Now that his plan failed, Chung calmly introduces himself to Shu and asks him to do the same. At first, Shu introduces himself as Luli, which Chung believes. But the moment he mentions being from the same city as Chung, they both get confused and tension rises. To avoid blowing his cover, Chung quickly changes the subject and asks to see the rusty sword Shu is holding. When Shu refuses to show the sword, he decides to leave and join the other colleagues. Shu follows him to keep trolling for more negative emotion points. Not long after, the duo comes across a patch of land full of zombie skeletons and soon gets surrounded. As skeletons rise from the ground, Chung runs off and Shu follows close behind. Soon he asks Shu to give him his rusty sword so he can massacre the zombies chasing them with it. But Shu keeps the sword just to troll him and farm more negative emotion points. Eventually, Shu abandons Chung in the middle of the zombies. Despite that, Chung easily destroys them and keeps running until he catches up to Shu. When he gets close, Chung demands to know why Shu left him with the zombies to die. Shu tricks the brainless idiot by acting dumb until he believes him. After resolving the misunderstanding, the duo finds a suitable place to camp for the night. But before sleeping, Shu trolls Chung by pretending to meditate for a few seconds, then scares him when he tries to pull a fast one, earning a few more negative emotion points. The next morning, Shu gets a little hungry, so he steps away to a corner and orders a bowl of stinky tofu through his system interface. After a few bites, he returns to camp. Chung, shocked to see him carrying a steaming bowl of stinky tofu, demands to know how he got it. Instead of answering, Shu ignores him and keeps provoking the poor guy with useless information until Chung explodes, refusing to take any more of his nonsense. Chung swings a fatal blow at Shu, but Shu immediately blocks it, and they get into a serious fight. Over the next few minutes, Chung fights desperately against Shu, looking for openings in his defense to land a fatal blow, while Shu dodges every attack and inflicts some injuries on Chung. At some point in the fight, they pause. However, the moment Chung charges at him to continue, Shu keeps blocking and landing more blows. At this instant, Chung gets the upper hand and rips the rusty sword from Shu's hand. But just as he's about to deliver the final blow, Shu gets behind him, summons his corpse hound, and stabs Chung right in the chest. In seconds, Chung dies. Shu accepts the fact that he's now a killer, picks up his rusty sword, and leaves to continue exploring. 2 days later, he finds a huge apple tree housing a large number of squirrels and harvests a bunch of apples to munch on when he gets to a safe spot. As soon as the squirrels see him stealing their precious apples, they throw rocks at him. Shu runs off with the few fruits he managed to gather. A few hours later, he takes a break from all that running and tries to figure out where he is. Given how big the ruin actually is, Shu figures the formation eyes must be at the center. However, to get there, he has to retrace all his steps from the beginning. With that said, Shu gets up to start his journey back to where he started. But at this instant, a pack of demon wolves attacks him and chases him back to the apple tree from before. Scared for his life, Shu runs as fast as he can to shake the wolves. But at some point, one of the wolves catches him and bites his arm. To stop the bleeding, Shu quickly consumes a celestial fruit and eats it. However, when the bleeding doesn't stop, he realizes he's completely screwed and keeps running all night until he evolves, becoming much faster and stronger. With this new improvement, Shu speeds up, loses the whole pack in the blink of an eye, and keeps running, only stopping when he finds himself in a canyon with the students he protected at the start. The moment they recognize him, the spineless cowards ask if he came back with reinforcements. Shu says no. Disappointed, they stare at him with anger, wondering how he managed to survive the hostile desert for 2 days alone. But Shu just ignores them and stretches a bit to rest. Not long after, he gets curious and asks the students why so few of them are left. The only girl in the group says it's because another group of zombies ate more of them shortly after he left. Hearing this, he asks about their food. They all tell him they haven't eaten in 3 days. Instead of giving them some of the apples he gathered, he eats them right in front of them just to troll them and gives instructions on how to get more for themselves. At some point, the girl tries to take a bite from him. But when Shu refuses to let her eat, the other students get angry and decide to steal his food together. Soon, a useless weakling walks towards Shu with a battle axe and demands he hand over the food. However, to avoid hurting them, Shu just annoys them to death with stupid information, earning a few thousand negative emotion points, and leaves shortly after snatching their battle axe. A few hours later, while Shu explores the ruin, a cavalry zombie spots him walking and attacks him with its lance. Sensing danger, Shu holds the lance for a few seconds, gaining some negative emotion points. As soon as the cavalry zombie gets tired, he rips it from his hand. Soon after, 8 more cavalry zombies, including their general, approach. But Shu knows the terrain won't let him fight properly yet, so he climbs a nearby hill to escape. Seeing this, the zombie general orders his archers to shoot dozens of arrows at him. But thanks to Shu's absurd protagonist plot armor, not a single one touches him. After failing to catch Shu a few more times, the zombie general gives up and leaves with his men. With them gone, Shu retrieves the first cavalry zombie's lance, infuses it with spiritual energy, and keeps looking for the formation eye. An hour later, about 7 C-rank awakened from Faye's team spot the same cavalry zombie general and his army marching toward them and get a little scared. Seeing their bullets don't work against them, one of the awakened, Bai, instructs his scout to find the general before they attack so they can massacre him and dismantle the whole group. Observing the zombies for a few seconds, the scout identifies the one that looks different, which happens to be the same zombie whose lance Shu stole earlier, and calls the leader. Seeing this, another officer suggests they might be making a mistake, especially judging how easily exposed this supposed leader is. But since they can't back down now, Bai ignores him and instructs his sniper to find a better vantage point for a shot. As soon as the sniper is positioned, he takes the shot and lands a bullet in the zombie's head. The moment the zombie falls, everyone celebrates thinking they've won. But just seconds later, the cavalry general advances and orders his archers to fire arrows at them. Scared for their lives, everyone retreats to the edge of a canyon and relaxes to discuss next steps. Soon, someone spots Shu hanging from the other side of the canyon cliff, silently waiting for the nearby cavalry zombies to fall into his trap, and informs the others. When they spot him, Bai, thinking he's just a common Yuan student who's trapped and in danger, immediately orders his other men to help him. However, before they lift a finger to help, Shu steals another lance from a zombie, climbs back to the opposite side of the canyon, and leaves. Shocked at his athleticism, Bai and his colleagues rack their brains trying to figure out who this guy really is. But just as they're about to give up, one of the Yuan students traveling with them tells them the guy is their class idiot, Luli Shu. Hours later, the zombie general and his army surround Shu. But the moment they attack him, Shu infuses all the weapons with his spiritual energy and easily defeats all the small fry. Immediately after, the zombie general and 2 others attack from opposite directions. However, after dodging the general's attacks, Shu eliminates one of the small fry with his lance and faces the general in a life-or-death battle. During the first half of the final battle, the second small fry, an archer, interrupts the fight. But Shu smashes his head into the ground, destroying him, and finally defeats the zombie general. Minutes later, Bai, his colleagues, and the rest of the Yuan students search for Shu in the ruin, and soon start wondering if the guy has already reached the ruin's center. Since they can't be too sure, they keep tracking until they reach the battle site where Shu defeated the zombie general and his army. They analyze the aftermath only to realize he's much stronger than they thought. While they're at it, one of their scouts runs to report 9 more cavalry zombies spotted near the ruin's core entrance, now chasing someone. Almost instantly, Bai devises an effective battle strategy that he and his colleagues will use to defeat the cavalry. Shortly after collecting all the lances from the zombies he just killed, Shu climbs up to a mountain ledge and checks all the negative emotion points he earned from annoying the zombies and wolves in such a short time. After that, he buys a celestial fruit with part of the money, eats it, and replenishes all the spiritual energy he spent fighting the zombie general earlier. Around the same time, Bai and his colleagues climb a hill and observe the second wave of cavalry zombies approaching their location. However, just as they're about to attack the zombies, mysterious purple aura lances fall from the sky and destroy about 3 of them. When Shu appears, Bai, his colleagues, and even the other students run to help him. But to their total surprise, Shu ends up defeating the entire army, including the zombie general, all without their help. After his victory, Shu claims ownership of all the battle spoils and forbids Bai and his people from even approaching them. To avoid trouble, Bai says he's not interested in stealing his stuff, and then asks Shu why he's gathering so many weapons if he clearly can't use them all. Instead of answering, Shu ignores Bai and sets up a temporary stand to sell all the lances, armor, and swords he collected so far. After that, he offers his products to the desperate students and officers, only to realize most of them are broke. No money, no brains. To fix this, Shu decides to trade weapons for jewelry and valuable items. In seconds of having this idea, he sells a worthless zombie sword and receives a 12,000 yuan mechanical watch in return. Noticing how smooth the trade is, other officers run toward him and offer their gold necklaces, watches, bracelets, and even belts, just to get their hands on defective weapons that aren't that durable. Meanwhile, Shu gives them what they want without caring about anything and still stocks extra cash and negative emotion points from his colleagues, becoming a wannabe Elon Musk of shop. Soon after, the group continues their journey through a narrow canyon for several hours to reach the ruin's center. As they approach the center, the temperature drops drastically, but despite that, everyone pushes forward. Soon, Shu and Bai get into an argument about the sacrifices some Celestial Network members made to ensure the students were unharmed. While Shu thinks it's a waste of time to protect these pathetic attention seekers, Bai says they're actually worth protecting. Hours later, when it gets dark, Shu and the rest of his group pause their journey and camp at a certain point in the canyon to rest. Meanwhile, Shu notices Bai and his colleagues sharing their last supplies just to stay alive. So he takes pity on them and shares some of the special apple fruits he gathered earlier to replenish their energy. When cutting and eating slices of the apple fruit, Bai and his team feel a sudden wave of energy entering their system and thank Shu for saving them. Seeing this, the Yuan students approach Shu and beg for their share of the special apple fruit. At first, Shu refuses to give it for free. But when a guy hands over his expensive watch in exchange, Shu happily shares. About an hour later, the temperature drops even further, and soon a group of flying Gus attacks their camp. While Bai and the others form a defense line, Shu recognizes these Gus look a lot like Siyu's zombies and racks his brain to find a way to fight them. At this instant, his corpse hound gets excited and pushes against his chest, wanting to kill them. But since Shu can't risk being exposed, he contains the dagger in his body and accidentally scares the Gus away with his immense power. With the Gus gone, the crowd keeps going through the canyon until they reach the ruin's center and meet up with other Celestial Network members. While exploring the place, Shu notices a huge 8-meter wide hole in the ground, while a Celestial Network small fry narrates how Sai, the quiet villain from before, saved his stupid skin from a bunch of zombies when he was trapped and crying like an iPad kid. Although impressed with C's skills, Shu doesn't think much of the story, and instead focuses on observing the huge hole in the ground and selling his weapons. As expected, Shu sells several weapons to get more flashy items. But while he's at it, Fei introduces the leader of their expedition team, Zhang, and presents him as a prodigy from his class. Being a chill guy, Zhang welcomes Shu with open arms and informs him and C that as the students who stood out from the others, they will follow his leadership. With that said, Zhang gathers some of the higher-ups at the edge of the huge hole, then sends his special spiritual magic knife, the heart-nourishing blood sword, to measure the hole's depth. A few seconds later, he retrieves the knife, informs his people the hole is 100 meters deep with another big hole inside it. Also, given how uncertain the ruin's power level might be, Zhang advises they rest for the night and start exploring the next day. The others agree. Later that night, while Shu checks his negative emotion point notifications, he notices 9 strange names among the people feeding him points. After deeper investigation, he realizes these guys are spies from another city. Unfortunately, while he studies the crowd to observe the spies, Yi appears holding a whole special apple tree complete with dozens of fruits. He shakes down all the fruits and a squirrel hiding in it. Seeing this, Shu stops to talk with Yi, but soon Jiang appears, and Shu shifts his focus to him. After a quick chat, he tells Jiang about his new get-rich-quick scheme selling weapons and gives him one of his lances as a goodwill gesture. While Jiang examines the lance, a shady-looking guy approaches confidently and promises 50,000 yuan outside the ruin if he gives him one of those weapons. Luckily, Shu isn't stupid and immediately sees through the lie, refusing the guy's offer on the spot. At this, the ugly guy starts rambling nonsense to prove he's not lying. But while he's running his mouth, Shu gets a notification identifying the guy as one of the spy team members. Instead of reacting, he stays calm and keeps trolling until the guy leaves. By midnight, Shu is checking the level of hatred Ziyu has developed for him over the past few days when he suddenly notices 8 spies waking up at the same time and jumping into the huge hole to explore it before the others. Shu lets 7 go down, but holds the last one and provokes him. Either he splits the loot 70-30 or he gets reported. To avoid trouble, the last one, the ugly guy from before, agrees. But when Shu still refuses to let him follow his colleagues, he attacks him. Sensing danger, Shu dodges the attack easily. But just before the ugly guy attacks again, he shouts at the top of his lungs to wake everyone up and exposes the fool as a spy trying to steal the formation eye just for himself. In seconds, Yi destroys the attacker with a single blow and instructs Zhang to gather all the available strong personnel to start exploring the hole that night. Zhang gets a little suspicious. Yi might have a hidden motive, but since he's still his boss, he ends up gathering all the D rank and above awakened on the team and informs them about the dangerous mission ahead. After that, Yi approaches Shu in a corner and offers to help carry his shiny jewelry. However, when Shu refuses to hand over his jewelry, he proposes an irresistible deal. He promises access to all future ruins in the country using his power and status. provided Shu splits the profits from all sales with him. 90% for him, 10% for Shu. Hearing this, Shu knows Yi is trying to pull one over on him. So instead of giving in to the man's cunning behavior, he manipulates him into splitting the loot 50-50. Yi agrees. With that resolved, Shu stores all the jewelry in his jacket, ties it around his neck like a sling, and joins the other fighters to descend the hole. After enduring Yi's cringy, endless speech, Zhang asks one of his fighters to create an artificial staircase to safely get them to the bottom. As soon as the staircase is created, Yi's small army forms a single-file line and carefully descends. During the descent, the entire space around the hole's walls glows green. Although Shu is pretty surprised, he keeps advancing in silence. Seconds later, a powerful energy burst emanates from the bottom and disrupts everyone's flow. But as soon as it stops, Shu and the others keep descending until they reach the bottom. When they get there, they find the bodies of 6 of the 7 spies sitting upright in a circle, with one in the middle. They investigate them for survivors. However, realizing they're all dead, Yi leaves them and advances with his army, not even noticing something sinister is being plotted behind the scenes. After a few more minutes of walking, everyone enters a strange space decorated with bright green emerald crystals and a beautiful castle. They're immediately locked inside. Shortly after, they're surrounded by an army of Gus that attack them. At first, Yi faces a few to test their strength, but soon realizes they're just harmless annoyances. He then encourages the rest of the army to have fun destroying them. While the battle continues, Shu tries to attack some Gus, but for some strange reason they run away as soon as they see the purple glow of his corpse hound in his chest. Frustrated, Shu finally goes all out and takes down a large number of them. In no time, the soul of the spy who was in the middle of the circle suddenly appears behind an officer and assassinates him. When Shu sees this, he finally understands why he felt uneasy when they found them earlier. But while he's thinking about next steps, he releases all his limiters and disperses the soul with his tiger aura. Next, they identify the ghost as a shadow of the old Zal, probably released by the high levels of positrons in the atmosphere. But Shu, on the other hand, realizes the post-death technique mentioned is pretty similar to Shiyu's ability. At this instant, he gets a sudden warning from his dagger to check the left side. When he does, he finds Zal's ghost trying to sneak in. Keep in mind, the ghost is invisible. So when he accurately locates it and attacks, Yi demands an explanation for how he knew it was there. At this point, Shu knows he needs a good excuse to fool everyone, otherwise Yi and the others will discover he's suppressing 95% of his power. So to prove he just got lucky guessing the ghost's position the other time, Shu asks Yi to shoot plasma balls at random walls in the room. When Yi does it, he finally realizes he was just fooling himself. Soon after, a large zombie army with many foot soldiers and cavalry invades the room and corners Yi and his men. After some taunting, Yi notices the special lance in the zombie general's hand, and suspecting it's the ruin's formation eye, attacks the general with all his strength until he destroys his horse. Enraged, the zombie general declares war on Yi and his army. But despite being at a disadvantage, Yi still mobilizes his men to fight as they wish. While the battle starts, Shu uses his lance to take down several enemies at once. But the moment he's almost caught off guard by an archer, Sai saves his pathetic life and keeps wrecking zombies. A few minutes later, the zombies start avoiding Shu because of his corpse hound's aura. So instead of wasting time fighting, he sneaks into the castle behind them to explore and find something valuable. Shortly after, he enters a random room in the castle and checks his interface out of curiosity, only to realize Jiyu now hates his guts. At that exact moment, Zal's spirit tries to sneak attack him from the building's ceiling. But since Shu can already sense him, he makes a very suspicious pose and blows the ghost to pieces with a pink beam from a, shall we say, unconventional place. Around the same time, Yi and the zombie general go all out against each other as the general launches a full attack. Yi dodges and jumps until Li finally manages to grab the general's lance. Seeing this, the general increases his power and spins Yi to get him off his lance, but Yi refuses to let go. While the battle continues, Shu approaches a hall full of red-eyed demon statues with the squirrel Yi shook out of the tree earlier on his shoulder and cautiously enters to investigate. Seconds after he enters, the red-eyed demon statues come to life and attack him. But when Shu's corpse hound dagger jumps from his chest to automatically fight them, the statues realize they're facing someone who's going to beat them up and retreat. Shortly after scaring the statues, Shu keeps observing their bodies and forces all of them to surrender their magic lances to him. Meanwhile, Faye and Bai start losing momentum in the battle against the foot soldier zombies simply because of their overwhelming numbers. They try to call Yi for help, but he ignores them and focuses on grabbing the zombie general's lance first. Unfortunately for him, the moment he grabs the lance, the zombie general catches up to him and releases his aura dragons to stop him. Around the same time, C notices Faye and his partners being surrounded and overwhelmed by several foot soldier zombies. So to protect them, she freezes time and quickly eliminates all the zombies. Then she unfreezes time to make it look like she destroyed them in an instant. While Bai watches in admiration, the zombie general suddenly suspects something really sinister is happening inside one of his castle rooms. So he immobilizes Yi with his aura dragons, takes his lance back, and advances through the castle to make sure no one is snooping around. However, before he gets far, Yi frees himself from the aura dragon's control and rips the lance from his hand. While he taunts the zombie general, C destroys more foot soldier zombies and reaches a higher vantage point to look for Shu, only to realize he's nowhere to be found. The moment C enters a dark secret room in the hall, the zombie general panics. So to stop Sai from finding the real formation eye, he stops fighting Yi immediately and runs as fast as he can to get there in time. For context, Yi reveals that the ruin should have disappeared the moment a human touched the formation eye. But since he now has the lance and nothing's happening, he realizes he was wrong the whole time and follows the zombie general to the hall. When he gets there, the zombie general makes his demon statues surround him to keep him busy and then keeps looking for Shu. In no time, he finds Shu in the secret room trying to hold a golden box called the Mountain and River Seal, which happens to be the real formation eye, and charges at him to stop him. Unfortunately for him, it's already too late. The moment Shu touches the seal, the entire ruin implodes on him, and Faye, the students, and his colleagues are teleported back to the real world. About an hour later, Jiang stops at one of the mobile hospitals on site and asks an injured uncle if he's seen Shu since they got back. Around the same time Li says no, C appears looking for Shu personally, while Yi sneaks off to discuss the expedition's aftermath with Ting and Shi. Moments later, Jiang enters Faye's tent, where he finds him collecting and evaluating the students' weapons, and reports Shu's absence. Hearing this, Faye is shocked, thinking Shu died in the implosion. But when the other students start taunting him, Shu walks in looking like a movie star and roasts all his haters. After reuniting with Jiang, Shu approaches Faye, roasts Lu as usual, and hands over all 5 lances for evaluation. After that, he walks through the dense forest and somehow manages to find Ziyu sitting on a large tree branch waiting for him. Given the many negative emotion points he's accumulated from Ziyu so far, Shu expects her to give him trouble. But to his surprise, she just kicks his head and checks if he's okay. Afterward, she treats him with attitude out of petty anger. Seeing this, Shu promises to make it up to her by taking her for a delicious duck soup dinner the next day. Almost instantly, Ziyu's scowl disappears. With that resolved, Shu and his little sister head home. But when they get there, Shu locks all the entrances and asks Ziyu to summon her zombie servant. After she summons it, he conjures 2 small pearls, one black and one brighter, tells Ziyu they're food for her zombie servant, and reveals he made them from the energies absorbed from the zombies and the spy leader Zal's spirit. However, the moment he forces the black orb down the zombie's throat, the servant gets a little violent and lets out a harmless scream, after which Zia disperses it. Next, Shu gives his little sister 2 of the apple fruits he brought from the ruin. But while she's eating them, the squirrel jumps off Shu's shoulder and complains to Xiu for eating its fruit. Intrigued by its cuteness, Xiu pinches the squirrel's chubby cheeks, names it Shu, and forces it into submission by bribing it with a French fry. About an hour later, Shu retreats to his room and sends his soul to the alternate dimension inside the Mountain and River Seal to explore it. When Shu finds his soul floating over his entire city, he realizes the seal is a divine object that can observe Earth and returns to his real body after analyzing some of the spiritual aura also present in the air. Shortly after, he notices an empty section at the bottom of the seal that looks like an interdimensional storage space and sends his soul there to keep exploring. Minutes after arriving, he finds 2 large doors and opens them a crack, only to peek in and find the same castle he found in the ruin before it disappeared, parked there. However, while he's thinking about next steps, Xiyu pulls him back to his real body, worried he might have gotten into trouble again. After assuring her everything's fine, Shu promises to buy new appliances for the house and then declares they'll travel the world soon. Elsewhere, Ting and Yi meet to discuss the aftermath of the recent expedition. After failing to acquire the formation eye for the network, she suspects it was stolen by the zombie general, or Zale. Hearing this, Yi tells her he's already sent people to look for the spy in the city, so there's nothing to worry about. Next, the duo discusses Shu and Si, their new prodigies, and also anticipates the change that will happen once the next ruin appears on Earth. That brings us to the end of the video. What do you think happens next with Shu? Let us know in the comments below. If you made it this far and want more deep dives into anime that actually respect your intelligence, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell for Curious Nerd. We break down the smartest strategies, the craziest plots, and everything in between. Thanks for watching.